Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the final episode of the year of the Football Guys Daily Fantasy Hour, all presented by RotoGrinders.com. You've got Dan Bach, you've got the Lee twins, Austin and John, and we're here for the next hour to obviously get you some football information for this week 16. We're going to entertain you, we think, over the next hour. We're going to have our Losers Lane compilation, but we're making you wait till the end of the show, so you got to watch this whole thing, changing it up a little bit. But it's the last show for us, Austin. This is it. We're done after this.
This is a really special week too, because this is our third year doing this show together. The three of us have never missed an episode, and it is our 50th episode together, 50. So I'm excited to wrap things up on such a good landmark in our fantasy history.
I like that. 50 total episodes of this. Amazing. Amazing. John Lee, who came in style today. I mean, happy holidays to everybody, but you really are in the spirit. You know, we picked on you last week, John, for your wardrobe, and you said, well, I'm going to one-up you. And you pulled out, was it the Cousin Eddie sweater? Is that what we got going?
I was inspired this evening as I was doing my show prep. My better half was out watching some Christmas Vacation, and it's one of my favorite movies of all time. I laugh hysterically at that movie no matter how many times I watch it. And I said, you know what? I'm in honor of the holidays. I'm going to pull a Cousin Johnny tonight, and cheers.
Are you going to share any of those snacks with us? There's some snacks on that dresser behind you that look really tasty. You're going to share some of those with us?
You can have all you want. It's an all-you-can-eat buffet for you, brother.
Nice, thanks.
And we're putting Losers Lane to the end of the show today, but we still have to have something to talk about here in the beginning of the show, because if we just got into football, you know what? Maybe some of you would love it, but we have too much fun for that. So it wouldn't be a show unless I picked on John for something. So what I need to talk to you about, John, is what the heck is up with you and this Facebook photo that you posted of yourself the other day? Because, I actually passed this along to our producer so everybody could see this, because not everybody's as privileged as me to be John Lee's Facebook friend. So show the photo. This is what John suddenly, randomly, out of the blue this week, changed as his profile photo. And I'm sitting here and I'm thinking to myself, John, when I saw this, the first thing that came to mind is he had to have lost a bet, because there's no other reason why a grown man who is not single would go with the old dreamboat pose for Facebook. You know, if it was like Tinder or something, maybe, but I know that you're secure in your relationship, John.
Yeah,
so
I am.
What's the story behind the dreamboat picture of John Lee?
So it makes me laugh. So I bought this new iPhone, as you guys are both aware, because we've talked about it in the after party. And it was Saturday night. I had a few glasses of wine, and I was trying to figure out all the things that my my old man self had not yet figured out. And one of them was this studio portrait, I don't know, some sort of camera thing that my fancy iPhone did. And so I just started messing around, taking selfies. And I tried to smile because that would have made it less dreamboat, as you put it. But when I smiled, I had red teeth because I had red wine. And so then I went with the sultry look. And I was like, you know what? That's not half bad. So then I uploaded it, and that was the end of it. And then once I started getting abuse, that's the one thing you can say about me. I mean, look at me. Cousin Eddie tonight, I welcome the abuse because I'm one to dish it out. So I hope that you think I'm a good sport and I take it in, and that photo will stay on Facebook, good, bad, or otherwise.
Okay, well, experimenting with your new phone while drinking, that's the excuse. I'll actually buy that one. Buy that one.
It's the truth.
But that was something that I got a kick out of here. Yeah. I mean, you do say you bring the good looks to the show, so that's true. All right, it's week 16. Before we get into the analysis, we need to get into what we got going. Football Guys, RotoGrinders. Austin, what's the deal, Football Guys?
This week we are getting your feedback on how we can make Football Guys better. If you go to footballguys.com/survey, we've got some questions there for you. And for all the people who do the survey, we're going to give away 50 free subscriptions next season. So go give us that feedback. We would love to make our site better going forward, and we appreciate you taking the time to do that.
And we'll particularly like it if you tell them you love the Football Guys Daily Fantasy Hour. So feel free to do that. Include that. Of course, if you do. We don't want to bias you or anything like that. So check that out. RotoGrinders this week. Not too much new. Last week was our big sweat show. That was a lot of fun. But, this is like the final 2 weeks of full slates for us. You got a big another, $1,500 buy-in, $1 million first place payout tournament this week on DraftKings. And if you're not subscribed already, again, if you're looking to play other sports, you can do a 7-day free trial right now. And here's a little tip. I don't know if the suits will appreciate me giving this tip. Maybe they will. I'm kind of a suit, but not really. But 7-day free trial means you get like this week, and then you'll get some of next week on our football content. Because again, 7 days, you'll get both sides of it. And then of course you get baseball or basketball, you'll get hockey, and then obviously golf when that gets started up next year. So check it out. Free trial on our premium over at RotoGrinders. Again, Losers Lane, we're moving that to the end because we've done enough of them throughout the year that we just need to come up with one great finale, as we like to say. So you'll enjoy that one when we close the show. So John, let's get right into it. Okay, let's get into this week 16. We want to win some money here. And we'll start at the quarterback position in our injury update because this is the time of year where everybody's getting banged up. And back out there with the Denver Broncos, Trevor Siemian is on IR. We've got Paxton Lynch, Brock Osweiler. What's the story in Denver this week? Because I know Brock came in last week and looked pretty good, but what's the story happening in Denver?
Yeah, I mean, we have it's likely going to be Paxton Lynch out there this week. 6'7", got the makeup of a quarterback, but really not the skill set of one. This is just not a good situation. 8th DVOA defense against the pass and 22nd against the run. And Denver's been leaning on C.J. Anderson quite a bit over the past couple of weeks. He's had 19, 24, and 30 touches over the past 3 weeks. I think this situation where they just kind of feed Anderson the ball and hope for the best in a battle of teams that really aren't playing for a whole lot. So it doesn't excite me either way.
And that's the thing to look at this week, boys and girls, is who has incentive here. And Austin, the next guy I want to talk about, neither of these teams have incentive, but we have our good prices in DFS on a week where there's not a lot of value. I know it's only Wednesday. Things can change, but we're not seeing a lot. And that's Drew Stanton. He's going to draw the start this week over Blaine Gabbert for Arizona. And they take on the New York Giants. I don't know about you guys, but I was on the Foles train on FanDuel last week and led me to a pretty profitable week over there. You love when you can get that cheap quarterback and feel like he's got 2 touchdown upside. And it was a little bit greater than that this week. Can we do the same with Stanton? It's the same matchup. It's a home game. But, Austin, I think you might agree. We'll see, but Drew Stanton, probably not the pedigree of quarterback that Nick Foles is. So what's your take on this?
Nick Foles isn't exactly like a crazy high bar, but I do agree with your statement there
Okay.
that I don't feel as confident this week in Drew Stanton as I did last week with Nick Foles. I think Drew Stanton is borderline cash viable because of it being a little bit tighter week. But I'd rather try to get up to Cam Newton this week at quarterback instead of, going for the value guy this week if I can help it.
Your take on that, John? Because I think it's an important one this week. If you're going to go to a scrub, he's kind of the scrubby quarterback that stands out.
No team in the league's allowed more fantasy points than to the opposing quarterbacks than the New York Giants. Drew Stanton in limited action has looked okay. I mean, he had a tough game, I think, against I want to say it was against Jacksonville, but he played pretty well against San Francisco. So if we're talking about the caliber of opponent, dictates his performance, he should perform pretty well. And he's got a site minimum price across the industry. Larry Fitzgerald, future Hall of Famer. I'm in. I like it. Cam Newton is my first choice, but if the opportunity cost is too high, I can go with Drew Stanton after what we saw Nick Foles do last week and feel okay about it.
Aaron Rodgers is not going to play this week. He goes on the IR. They're eliminated from the playoffs. Brett Hundley is under center here, and huge swing. Like I saw the first line that dropped that was under the impression that Rodgers was going to play, and it was Minnesota favored by a point. I just took a look, and now it's Minnesota favored by like 9.5. I mean, that shows you how much Aaron Rodgers moves a line, and a 9.5 point road favorite here. Don't play Brett Hundley, boys and girls. This is a terrible, terrible spot against a really good defense. So don't be going there. Again, that's a Saturday night slate. And just a little note on that, too, for the Saturday night. I got to give Tip and Pick some credit because he did pretty good on the Flex Leagues on FanDuel this past week. And he literally boxed me in. I had, it was the two of us. And he was like, do I really want to make a pivot here? I knew we had the same guys. And I said, nah, I won't get off of Matt Ryan for Jameis Winston. Probably should have. But nonetheless, good lineups for you last week. But just a note for people, if you want to try those super flex leagues out again on FanDuel, they're running them the Saturday night game through Sunday. So they're not just the Sunday slate. They actually start the Saturday night game because we got 2 Saturday games this week. So just a public service announcement from your friendly Football Guy show. Also on Monday, TJ Yates probably going to be the starter once again with Tom Savage on the injured reserve against Pittsburgh. All right, running backs. We got Ezekiel Elliott coming off of suspension. And, John, what do we take of this? Because 6 weeks is a long time to be away from your team, to be away from your football facilities. Like when you have these suspensions, it's not just like, oh, I can't play in the games, I can still practice. No, you're like completely away from everything that's happening. So does that worry you at all with Zeke this week?
No, I think that every picture I've seen of Zeke over the past month has been of him without a shirt on, training somewhere, getting ready for his return. He looks great, and before he left, I'm looking down 30, 27, 34, and 27 touches in games, in the 4 games prior to him departing for that suspension. He's got fresh legs. The Cowboys need to win out, and part of that is contingent on the Falcons losing earlier in the day. But I think you'll see Ezekiel Elliott come out, and I think the Cowboys will be fired up. I really love him this week as a GPP play. There may be better cash game plays, but for GPPs, I don't know that there's any better.
There's a pretty good price decrease off of him from Todd Gurley. Again, we got no Le'Veon Bell in the main slate, and I think a lot of people will be going there. And I mainly agree with you. Like I feel like there's maybe like a 5 to 7% chance that when you're away for a month and a half like he was, you're not. I mean, you can work out, but you're not in, say, football shape. You're not getting contact like you typically could. Like you say, I think there's like a 5 to 7% chance that maybe he's not necessarily right, because we even saw with Le'Veon Bell, and this might be a different story, Austin, when he missed training camp, those first 2 weeks that he came in, he didn't look right. And I get that week 1 and, week 16 with playoffs on the brink are a little bit different, but again, I'm putting it 7% that maybe he's not quite like he was before.
Yeah, this is a great matchup for him, and I think he's going to be ready. I think the question is not so much whether you're worried about him being ready to go and having a solid game here, or whether there's a better option here, because there's a lot of large spreads this week that set up nicely for running games. And so I think you have to choose between like, hey, do you want Alvin Kamara against Atlanta, who really struggles against pass catching backs? Do you want Melvin Gordon if Austin Eckler is out? And then of course Todd Gurley is in play. There's a lot of really high end options here that I probably got Elliott 3rd or 4th on my list in terms of cash game plays.
Let's talk about the Patriots here, Austin. We got Rex Burkhead out this week. Mike Gillislee, they already said, is going to play. You still have Dion Lewis and kind of James White there. Burkhead had a huge role in this offense. Now he is out. Does Gillislee suddenly just jump into that role? Is he the guy? Because he's really cheap. I was looking at some of the numbers on him. He's 3.9K over on DraftKings and a stone minimum 4,500 over on FanDuel. What's your feelings on that running back situation?
I think Dion Lewis is the safest bet in this backfield, but I feel like trying to trust a Patriots running back is playing with fire, and they all are GPP plays, so I don't like any of them in cash. But Gillislee at that low of a price, I think, is worth considering for some ownership in GPPs.
John, let's talk about GPPs because I agree. Nobody's really going there in cash games, but you can get an under 4K guy maybe on a week where there's not a lot of value who's got some pretty good touchdown equity potentially. I think he's really in play in GPPs. Again, it's Wednesday, subject to change without notice. But John, if you were going to build 100 lineups, how many would you put Gillislee on here on a Wednesday night?
I hate to use your numbers, but probably 5 to 7%. The thing about Gillislee that really kind of confuses me is if we look at his numbers before week 8, when they made him a healthy and active for the rest of the season, his numbers weren't terrible. He was averaging 4 to 5 yards per carry. He had 4 touchdowns. Now, granted, most of those were at the beginning of the season, but he wasn't having a terrible season. There was just something about him that Bill Belichick did not like, and he decided to bench him. And that's the question that I have. I think last year we saw in Buffalo, this guy, he's got great goal line potential. You throw him in there inside the 5, inside the 10, he's a touchdown hawk. And so for that reason, he's a great GPP play, especially at the prices we're talking, given that he's going up against the worst defense against running backs in the league, and they're 12-point favorites. All the pieces are there. The question is, will we get the volume without Burkhead being in the game?
But
and really, that's it.
But does he even need volume? He could get 2 goal line touches for touchdowns, and you're there. And that's happened with him previously.
No doubt. I mean, and that has happened. But, I kind of want what is he, 4,000? Is that what you said, 3,900 on DraftKings?
39 on DraftKings. Yeah, min salary FanDuel.
So we're looking for 4X value, right? Typically, we're looking for 4X value. But when you start going down the price scale, I want a little more than 4X. And, you're right. You can get 4X on a pair of touchdowns, but I kind of want 5X or 6X, which is what made Gio Bernard so attractive a few weeks ago, because he had that type of upside at 3K, and he delivered with like 6.5X, if I remember correctly. I'm not poo-pooing him. I think that he's firmly in play. But as of now, I think 1 out of 20, between 1 out of 10 and 1 out of 20 GPP lineups is kind of where I'll land, unless something dramatically different comes out of the Patriots camp this week.
Yeah, and there definitely could. You could basically have them come out and be like, he's going to be in the Burkhead role. And then you're really interested because if Burkhead was 3,900, you're pretty much playing him all day long. So we will see. Leonard Fournette, he is supposed to be back this week for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Doug Marrone has already said he is our starter. He is going to play this week. And a great matchup versus San Francisco. I actually think he's going to be really overlooked. I think, this matchup like 5 weeks ago, Fournette would have been mega chalk. San Francisco's terrible versus the run. The Jags love to feed this guy, but he's been banged up. Hasn't put up huge numbers lately. I think he is a really interesting play for tournaments this week because he's going to have way lower ownership than I think he should. Joe Mixon did practice today, but not officially out of that concussion protocol. And John, he's a guy that, Cincinnati is just a dumpster fire right now. Like, they don't have anything really going for them. But it also feels like, okay, if Mixon's healthy, he's the one that's going to get the touches here. And he was starting to be a little bit more effective before that concussion hit a couple weeks ago. What do you think?
I love the matchup. I mean, you can't argue with the matchup. Detroit, third friendliest defense in the league against running backs in terms of fantasy points per game. And, Gio Bernard himself had 17 touches per game without Mixon in the lineup. And prior to that, Mixon was averaging close to 20. The only thing that gives me pause is that over the past 2 weeks, the Bengals have only scored 14 total points. They had a touchdown last week and a touchdown the week before. And if you think that this team is mailing it in, and we have to talk about those kinds of things this time of year, if they're mailing it in, Mixon's upside may be limited. But the matchup is, you definitely cannot argue. And he's a rookie. I think rookies are a little bit different than maybe a veteran this time of year. A lot of rookies, they want to make their mark and establish themselves heading into their second year, whereas a veteran, they kind of done that already. So I'm a little more excited about Mixon than I would be Gio Bernard, for example.
We need to keep our eye on Tevin Coleman, questionable with the concussion. If he would be out again, we saw Devontae Freeman get a ton of volume. He'll be very viable against New Orleans in what could be a potential shootout. Mr. Austin Eckler is going to be out this week with a hand injury. This is nothing but good news here for Melvin Gordon, I think.
Yeah, it was weird. Everyone was sort of talking about earlier today that he was going to be out for sure, like headed to IR. And then they said later today that he got in a limited practice. And so that was really confusing to me. So we don't watch this one carefully. I was big time on Melvin Gordon when I knew Austin Eckler was out. But if Eckler is active for this game, that would take me off of Gordon a little bit.
Sure. I think a little bit, not a ton, not completely.
Not completely.
I don't know.
I don't think he'll play. I don't think he'll play. I think he was on the bike today. I'll be very surprised if Austin Eckler is active this weekend.
Okay. And then Kerwin Williams, again, with a quad injury, did not practice today. Something to keep our eye on here. Again, you got the Giants, John, a terrible match or a good matchup. They're at home. Giants are going all the way out west. Not playing for anything. I think last week was kind of their Super Bowl performance there against Philadelphia. But if Kerwin Williams is out, we could actually have some value in this backfield for the Cardinals, couldn't we?
Yeah, I think you need to be careful here, though. I talked a little bit about this last night, and I think that Devin Knotts, fellow football guy, actually drove this point home. It's like this time of year, when there is an option for a team to play or to give two different players some playing time, they're likely going to, especially if there's nothing on the line, to give a little bit more option or a little bit more opportunity, I should say, to those younger players to kind of assess where they're at heading into the offseason. And so here we've got three running backs. You've got DJ Foster, who's kind of the pass catching running back coming out of the backfield. You've got Elijah Penny, who's also a rookie. So we got two rookies coming out. And then you've got Kerwin Williams. Kerwin Williams has been in the league for 5 years. 4 of those years he's been a Cardinal, and he hasn't earned a starting job outside of injuries. I think a lot of people are going to be on Kerwin Williams because the matchup is there. We're talking about the 24th rated DVOA defense against the rush. It might be fool's gold. He's not my fool's gold candidate this week, but I think that you may be overemphasizing him if you're playing him too much. I think those rookie running backs may get a look this week to kind of enter into the 2018, see where they stand, and entering the draft and so forth.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing just inactive for Kerwin Williams and potentially seeing some Elijah Penny, 10 carries in that second half when he got hurt, and DJ Foster, 9 targets last game. So pretty productive a week ago. At the wide receiver spot, you guys have some Jaden Mickens last week by any chance? If you did, congrats. You're a mind reader, or you cheated because they were not on the radar. But this week, Marquise Lee, he's doubtful with an ankle injury. He's not going to play this week. Alan Hearns, he actually did practice this week. First time in feels like a month that he was actually out there at practice. But Austin, we saw the emergence of Keelan Cole. We've seen Dede Westbrook be really good the previous 3 or 4 weeks. We saw Jaden Mickens, who's actually been great on special teams all year long, but he even did a few things. What do you think of this Jags passing game? How do you kind of rate these guys this week? And include Hearns in that if he plays.
Yeah, I would say that Cole would be at the top of my list, then Westbrook, then Hearns, then Mickens. I think Cole's the guy you want this week, regardless of whether Hearns plays or not. This is a good matchup for him against San Francisco.
Yeah, I'm fine with Cole. I think it's more of a DD game. I think after last week, Cole is fine. Like, he's a good player. He's a little bit cheaper. And that's where the drawback comes here, John, is the price on Westbrook. It's not a gimme. I think they kind of factored in that Lee was going to be out. And he's somewhat juiced up on DraftKings. On FanDuel, he's still really cheap, though. I think he's like $5,800 over there.
Yeah, I mean, I think the question becomes, if Hearns is active, how much playing time does Keelan Cole get? If he
a lot, because I don't think Hearns is any good. I don't think he's that good.
Well, I mean, I think they have different roles. So my feeling is that he probably does get a lot, 80% or more, and I'm completely fine with it.
Yeah.
He's likely running out of the slot, and Hearns is an outside guy, and Westbrook is an outside guy. So I think that's okay as long as we know that is the case. But I would not be going back to Jaden Mickens. I think that what we saw last week was kind of a fluky thing, and we've seen these things like Mercedes Lewis early on when he scored 3 touchdowns in London or whatever it was. It was one of those deals. Don't go chasing that. If you do, I think you'll be sorry on Monday morning.
All right, we've got Emmanuel Sanders out this week. Again, tough situation there against Washington, but Demaryius Thomas should get the majority of the looks, I think, in that offense this week. Tavares King had a touchdown or maybe even 2 last week. I know he had at least 1 and played really well, but he is in the concussion protocol. Keep your eye, though, on Roger Lewis. He actually has had like 20-some-odd targets over the last couple of weeks. I know Shepard's going to get the talk, but as we've seen all year long, Austin, it's not always number 1 guy you want when you play Arizona. So keep your eye over there on Roger Lewis. Chris Hogan, questionable with a shoulder injury. We've kind of had this situation play out before, but with with Tampa, Deshaun Jackson in a walking boot, doubtful to play this week. How does that change that passing game? I mean, they're pretty big underdogs against Carolina. You're thinking they're going to throw it. Where does that opportunity move to, especially with O.J. Howard, definitely on the IR and out himself?
Yeah, I think you got to take a look at Chris Godwin here, 3,000 on DK in GPPs. With those other 2 pass catchers out, I think, Humphreys will probably see a little bit more action, but he doesn't have the upside that I'd be looking for from a guy like Godwin.
Yeah, I think Godwin's kind of interesting too. He played well that week that Mike Evans was suspended. So take a look at that. Again, Antonio Brown out. If you're playing that Monday slate, if that game is in there, Juju Smith-Schuster, Martavis Bryant, huge bump for them. Another nice name here, John, to throw out potentially as well for those Saturday slates. With Devontae Adams not likely to play, how about some Geronimo Allison? I mean, it's Brett Hundley, I get it, but he's going to be min salary and probably going to get some looks in that offense.
I mean, we've seen what Brett Hundley does. He doesn't throw to Jordy, and Jordy's going to get a lot of Xavier Rhodes this week, so that's a double whammy for him. Devontae Adams is he officially out? So we know that he's officially out.
I mean, it's
not looking good. We can all agree on that.
No.
So
yeah,
if they're not playing Rodgers, they shouldn't play him. I'll tell you right now.
Exactly.
And so then that leaves Randall Cobb, who has been basically non-existent with Brett Hundley under center. So yeah, I mean, Allison at half the price of a guy like Cobb, I'll certainly take a stab at him. Especially because on those short slates, the only thing I do is ever play a GPP, and you've always got to have that one guy who hits at less than 10%. And I think Allison would definitely fits that mold of a player on that short slate.
Tight end spot here real quick. Again, Hunter Henry is going to be out with a lacerated kidney. That doesn't sound nice. Antonio Gates maybe gets a little bit of a bump. Jeff Cumberland, another name. I'm probably avoiding it altogether. O.J. Howard out. Cameron Brate, hey, you know what? This might be a spot for him, but number 1, I think, DVOA defense against the tight end in Carolina. He's cheap, though. I think he's still playable on DraftKings, but just be aware of that. All right, let's get to Chalk Talk here. And both of you told me you love Cam this week. Austin, make the case for Cam real quick. Shouldn't be too tough.
Yeah, I mean, the Tampa Bay passing defense has struggled all year long. They've been a little bit better recently than, they were earlier in the season. But the sort of the upside here and the implied team total of 28 plus points. Tampa Bay has nothing to play for. Carolina has everything to play for. This should be a big game for Cam Newton.
And what do we think of Russell Wilson here, John? He's a name that I'm interested in, especially, if you're going to fire a 3K guy out there, you probably can pay up a little bit more for quarterback. And, maybe not on FanDuel. He's over 9K over there. But on DraftKings, he's the highest priced quarterback. But at 7K, still reasonable. And this is a big game for Seattle. After that dud a week ago, I would be shocked to see Wilson not bounce back with a big effort here. What do you think of him?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think that this is a situation where if you just look at the matchups, they're not going to be able to run the ball. Sean Lee has been tremendous. When he's in the game, they really shut down the run. There'll be no Mike Davis this week. He better not go off this week because I had lots of him last week. And they just eliminated them within the first quarter because of what Todd Gurley did. But, this is a Cowboys team that in terms of passing touchdowns, I think they have the third highest rate of points being scored through that means they're susceptible through the pass is basically what I'm saying. And here's a guy who had a bad week last week. I think he bounces back in a big way. And I don't think it's going to be a big secret. I looked at our Steve Buzzard's early ownership projections, and he's projected to be on DraftKings, the second highest owned quarterback this week behind Cam Newton, 17 to 10% respectively.
Yeah, but the quarterbacks always spread out, I mean, let's see. I think Jamino right now, he's got him fourth on the list. And again, these change as we get a little bit closer to kickoff. But I don't think he's going to have crazy popularity, especially just because of the week, the way it's setting up. Value could open up, but as it stands at the moment, there's not a ton of it. We talked about most of the running backs that are going to be chalk here, guys like Melvin Gordon, Ezekiel Elliott, Todd Gurley. There's not much you can say. The guy's a stud. But there's two names I want to discuss here that I think are interesting. One, John, Kenyon Drake. This guy has put up workload type, or had workload type numbers along the lines of Le'Veon Bell, Ezekiel Elliott. He's getting all the touches in that backfield, and he's been doing a lot with it. Those guys were 7,100. We would be all over them. What do you think of Drake this week, where the prices come up just a little bit, but we're not used to paying 7,100 for him? What's your feeling on him?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the issue here is that his price is getting up. The game script is kind of negative in the sense that either 12 or 10.5 point underdog. So it favors a passing game script. And today, Wednesday, Damian Williams, got in a partial practice. I think the combination of those things is trending towards Damian Williams at least playing to some degree this weekend. And the reason that Kenyon Drake has been so valuable is that he's getting 25 touches no matter what his salary. I'll finish it with this and say that if Damian Williams is not active this weekend, I think that he's in play. But if Damian Williams even gets a number of touches, then I'm out. I'm off.
I disagree. I don't think that Damian Williams is going to do anything to affect Kenyon Drake's workload here. They've seen how good he's been. Why would you change what has been working here for you the last few weeks? He's been really good. Damian Williams is not good. Kenyon Drake is probably the future of this team. I'm not buying that suddenly he comes back and gets much of a workload at all here. Austin, what's your feeling? You be the decider.
I think Williams, if he plays, is getting 5 to 7 touches, which I think is enough to take me off of him at that salary. That's not a lot of touches. It's just enough to spell him. Like, Drake hasn't had anyone to spell him, and I think Williams is that guy.
Especially on DK, where those touches are likely third down carries, third down conversion, third down situations where you get the passing down situations. So, yes, the Lee brothers are aligned on the last game, the last show of the year.
Lee brothers are going to go down in flames when Kenyon Drake just goes bonkers again. It doesn't matter if they're an underdog. He is a beast. But then the other guy, Austin, CJ Anderson. Dude's got 52 carries the last 2 weeks. Wow, 52. That's a lot. Does he do anything for you this week versus Washington?
Man, it feels so wrong to try to rely on CJ Anderson after he's let me down so many times. But the volume has been ridiculous here. And the matchup isn't terrible defensively. The implied team total isn't too pretty at 18.5 points. Dude, it's just
John's shaking his head. Okay.
The thing is there's so many good running back options this week. It's like I don't see myself like he'd be like 10th on my list in terms of like guys that I'd be thinking about after my whatever. He'd be way down my list. I don't see it.
John, real quick, you got thoughts?
He's just so I hate to be one of the because I hate it when people do this, but I'm going to do it. He's so inefficient. Last week was his first good week all season. Look at you.
But it's true.
There's worse things to hate on people calling people inefficient.
I know, but it's overplayed. I really feel it's overplayed. I think too many analysts talk about inefficiency, and it really doesn't fit. But I think in this case, it really does fit. Here's a guy last week, 30 carries, 158 yards. Wow, that's 5 yards per carry. Let's everybody go all in on him against Washington on the road. I feel like it's a bad spot. Before that, he averaged 2 yards per carry against the Jets, 4 yards per carry against the Dolphins, 2 yards per carry against the Raiders, 3 yards per carry against the Bengals, 2, 3, 2. These are numbers that don't impress me.
I've got something. So CJ Anderson has at least 20 touches in the games they win. He has less than 20 touches in the games they lose. This isn't like the coach speak thing where it's like, oh, if we get him 20 touches, he'll win. Well, we'll win this game. They're going to lose this game. He's not going to get 20 touches, and people who play him are going to be sad. That's my take.
All right, we got to get moving. We still got losers laying compilation at the end. Wide receiver, it's an interesting position here this week. I actually think Mike Evans going to be pretty chalky this week. The price didn't get bumped up. You take Deshaun Jackson out. He's 6,400 on DraftKings, 7K on FanDuel. Not the best matchup, but should be playing from behind. Look for him to be chalky. Michael Thomas, maybe the safest guy on the board against Atlanta here. This guy's been just getting his 12 targets, starting to get some end zone equity. Keep your eye on him. Austin, any interest in AJ Green? Lowest salary of the year and maybe the lowest salary ever on him on DraftKings, 6,700 this week.
Against Darius Slay? No, thank you.
John, you agree with that?
I'm with him. We're running out of time. That's one thing we don't have to waste time on. Darius Slay over the.
I'm going to play him a little bit. Okay, he gets a touchdown in this game. There you go. Boom. Bounce back. AJ Green.
Over the past 5 games, okay. 3 interceptions.
I know. Watch AJ McCarron go in there and just be good. We'll see. One value guy I want to talk about, Devontae Parker. I think he's interesting this week. 4.2K on DraftKings, 5.7 on FanDuel, 12 targets, 89 yards last week. Not a lot of volume or not a lot of value this week at wide receiver, but he's a guy who pops. And John, is it Tate or is it Marvin for you against that Bengals defense, which has been dreadful?
Yeah, we talked about this in the Power Grid last night. It's really difficult to know. I think you can make it an argument for any of these Detroit offensive players, including the running backs for what it's worth, Theo Riddick and Amir Abdullah, assuming he plays. But if you play
Abdullah, you can't make a case for him. He's terrible. Do not play him.
Okay. All right. Well, then we will make a case for him.
Okay. All right. Oh, we got to get going. We're so late.
Marvin
late.
Jones. That's what I want.
There you go. I think they're both fine. Kelsey, Gronk, really good weeks for them if you can fit them in. Probably giving the slight edge to Kelsey on the savings on salary between the two. Both thumbs up. We like that. And Greg Olsen. I don't know if we didn't call him on this show, but I had him on Sunday Morning XM show. He was too cheap. He finally got back. And another week, I think we can maybe look to him at 52 on DraftKings, 66 on FanDuel. All right, let's skip some game flows and get right to the wide receiver cornerback matchups. John, tell us what you got.
All right, what do I got? Dez Bryant looks like he's going to go up against Byron Maxwell. Over the past 5 weeks, what have you done for me lately? Who is that? That's Janet Jackson, right?
Yes.
Thank
Yeah.
What have you done for me lately?
you. Over the past 5 weeks, Byron Maxwell, second most yardage allowed, 340 yards while in coverage, allowing 127 quarterback rating and 4 touchdowns. This is a really good spot for Des Bryant, and I think that in GPP situations, he's pretty attractive because I think that what's going to happen, everybody's going to be excited about Ezekiel coming back, and he's got a plus matchup, so don't be afraid to go after him as a leverage play against all those Ezekiel Elliott owners. Devin Funchess, he screwed a lot of us last week, myself included. One of my highest owned players. I think he was about 20% owned across the industry. He'll go up against Ryan Smith of the Tampa Bay Bucks. Smith has given up a 130 quarterback rating with 4 touchdowns allowed over the past 5 weeks, 11 most yards over that period of time, and he's kind of banged up. He had a partial practice today. I expect him to play, but I don't think that he will be I don't think he's going to be any problem for Devin Funchess this weekend. If you watch that game back, Funchess got hit early in the ribs in the end zone, dropped a touchdown pass. After that, they went up and they kind of eliminated him from the game plan. He just kind of a decoy out there running routes. I look for a bounce back game this week. Keelan Cole goes up against Dante Johnson there in San Francisco. Dante Johnson, number 64 out of 74 over the past 5 weeks, allowing 140 quarterback rating, almost an 80% completion rate. He's been targeted every 5 coverage snaps. This is a really good spot for Keelan Cole, especially in light of what we talked about with the injury situation there in Jacksonville earlier this week. And then lastly, if you're playing that Christmas Day slate, I'm not going to talk a whole lot about this, but a lot of people are going to be on Juju Smith-Schuster and Martavis Bryant because of those are the 2 name brand guys. But don't be afraid to go with Eli Rogers. He's going up against Kareem Jackson, who's been in the bottom 10% all season in coverage. And I think Eli Rogers will be the lowest owned receiver in that wide receiving core. And I think he has as much upside as any of those guys. In terms of avoid, I'm avoiding Jordy Nelson this week against Xavier Rhodes. We talked about this already. Devontae Adams banged up. And over the past 3 games, Xavier Rhodes has held Julio Jones, Devin Funchess, and A.J. Green to 78 total yards. Marquise Goodwin has looked tremendous with Jimmy Garoppolo under center. 25 targets over the past 2 games, 11 per game over that time. In this case, he's going up against those excellent, stellar Jacksonville secondary. Jalen Ramsey and A.J. Boy, I'm off of them. And then the last one, Casey Hayward will probably shadow Robbie Anderson this week. Casey Hayward's 19th overall. He's got 3 touchdowns allowed versus 4 interceptions this season. And then 3 of those interceptions were over the past 5 weeks where he's allowed a 29 quarterback rating. This team is in the playoff hunt. They need to do everything possible to win. And their very best player is Robbie Anderson. I think they take him away and they win this game easily.
All right, Fool's Gold, bounce back. I don't think I had a bounce back, but my Fool's Gold, my call last week was Gurley over Le'Veon Bell. I got that one right for sure last week.
Nice.
Paid off handsomely over there on a couple of lineups on FanDuel. John, your Fool's Gold was D.D. Westbrook. We'll give you that one. That one worked out just fine for you. Austin, Christian McCaffrey was kind of good last week. So,
you got a touchdown.
Yeah, you got that game kind of mixed up with Jordy. But we get to redeem ourselves here this week on our picks. And we're going to go with Tip and Pick first. What you got? Bounce back. Fool's Gold.
Fool's Golds. I've got two players from the same team. In our early week projections, CMC, Christian McCaffrey on DraftKings is the 4th highest owned running back at 19%. Assuming that holds true, I think he's Fool's Gold. That's too high for me. He's 6,400. Over the past month, he's had 9, 11, 11, and 18 touches. The highest the highest point total he's had all season is 25.6, which would be 4x on his current salary. I don't think he hits that again this week against Tampa Bay. Now, the player I do think could hit 4x is the same guy I talked about earlier in that same game. This is my bounce back candidate, Devin Funchess against Tampa Bay. He didn't practice all last week. He looked good early in that game. I told you about him taking a hit to the ribs. They jumped up by a couple touchdowns. There was no need to throw the ball. They just kind of ran him on any number of plays. I think this is a perfect situation for him to bounce back for a team that's still in the playoff hunt against a Tampa Bay secondary that's allowed some really big games. And I think recency bias will keep his ownership low, so I think that makes him a great GPP play.
I'm going to roll with, I think my bounce back is going to be Drew Brees this week. He's been so close to having those big games. How many touchdowns seemingly get taken off the board for him every single week because of penalties? I think that game really has the ability to shoot out versus Atlanta. I don't know. I mean, in that dome, I feel like that's got some back and forth to it. And I know Breeze has just an amazing running game to him, but this is the week he goes over 300 yards. It's been a while. And he's the same price as Blake Bortles. I can't even believe it. That's crazy. My fool's gold this week, man, this is a tough one. Oh, man. You know what? I think Gurley's going to be fine this week, but I think he's going to be over-owned this week against Tennessee. Like, I think this game definitely has shootout potential to it, but I think the passing game is going to be a little bit more used than it was last week where they had this enormous lead. So I'm not fading Gurley all out, but I'll be way underweight on Todd Gurley at the price bump. Austin, real quick, what do we got for you? Bounce back, fool's gold.
Bounce back, I've got Russell Wilson. You could toss in Jimmy Graham there, who's probably more of a bold call considering he has -1 yards over the past 2 games. My fool's gold is Leonard Fournette against San Francisco. Surprisingly, San Francisco has allowed the fewest fantasy points to running backs over the past 5 games in the entire NFL. So only 10 DK points per week over the last 5 weeks. So I am fading Fournette. There's too many other good options this week.
Interesting. I think Fournette's interesting this week, but you make a very good case about the recent form of that defense. All right. Well, this is pretty much going to do it for us here, boys and girls. It's been a good year. It's been a really good year. And we hope to be back again next year. I don't know why the suits would take us off this show. I mean, I don't know. I feel like it's an award-winning show, right, guys? Or should we say award-nominated show still? We still got to toot our horn on that.
Yeah.
And John, real quick, is that that's not a real, like, turtleneck there, is it?
No, this is Cousin Eddie-esque. I'm telling you, this thing doubles. This doubles as a, in case you're a sloppy eater. They call this a dickie where I come from. What is it down in Florida?
I think we call it like a lobster bib, maybe. Like that's usually what they give you when you wear one of those things. So I love it. That is good stuff. Again, we're not going to be back for week 17. We all got some holiday stuff. Austin, any final words for the peeps before we kind of get out of here?
I just appreciate everybody watching us, liking us enough that we could do a 3rd season. I look forward to hanging out with these guys every week. And I just appreciate y'all laughing with us as we deliver our fantasy advice. I just appreciate you having fun with us a little bit and having a little bit lighthearted moments in our show. I enjoy it.
Definitely. Yeah. We try to have a good time on this one and we love doing it. It's going to be a long winter, or I guess short winter, long summer for us, but we hope to be back again next year. But it wouldn't be a final show for us if we didn't put together all of our antics for one last farewell to you. So you get some video, you get some comments from the show itself. I don't know. I love it. This is one of my favorite things we do all year long. But thanks so much for watching us. Check them out over at FootballGuys. And, of course, if you're playing DFS beyond football season, please be using our services over at RotoGrinders. For Austin and John, I'm Dan. Good luck this week. And moving forward, it's all right, David. We can end it a little bit early today. And let's hit the video. We'll see everybody.
'Cause I've got rosters with crappy low scores, where ankles are twisted and ACLs torn.
Ezekiel. Bad games never seem so bad. So bad. So bad. So bad.
Bad Jimmy Graham, worst tight end this side of town. Certainly not the GOAT. Hands like Sammy Coates. Where, oh where were you tonight? Why did you leave me here once again? I searched player pool over and thought about a good one, but you stung it up and loser's lane.
How does it work if at the end of the fourth quarter the teams have the same amount of points? What happens next?
They play another quarter.
Oh yeah, what happens there?
If they get a tie, they have to play another quarter.
Yeah, and then what happens after that?
It could go on for days.
Yeah, how long has the longest football game ever gone?
About a month.
About a month? That's a lot of
There's
overtime.
been some quarterbacks who have thought that could happen.
So stop. Building lineups and listen. Bach is back with a brand new edition. My team was so unsightly. It's John Lee. Don't take him lightly. Do I finish on top? Yo, I don't know. He's scientist, not a DFS pro. It's a pipe dream to win this game without scandal. Still swapping off players like I'm drunk with a handle.
New England fell behind late against Houston, but Brady's bunches of scores helped the Patriots win. The Bengals had Bill laser focus at Lambeau, but the Packers won in overtime with Geronimo.
You burden him with your questions. He'd never tell a lie. He loves Foo Fighters and Star Wars, but spoilers will make him cry. He's rarely seen on loser's lane. His teams drive me insane. He shot me down by 80 points. His win streak continues. Those teams he builds, showing all that DFS skill. Those teams he builds. Austin's unbelievable.
So what you wanna do?
I got a bunch of sleeper picks and my homeboys do too.
So turn on the lights and hit record.
But
what?
don't ever play, Gino.
Yeah, Austin seen Last Jedi soon.
Dipping picks going gray and Dan lost his due. Strolling loser's lane, rolling value. Hoping my team breaks loose.
Game style.
With my mind on my lineup and my lineup on my mind.
When you lose, that means you got to step up to the plate. You got to entertain the folks. And that's what I'm here to do. And hopefully we don't scare your kids.
I do bring the dashing good looks to the show.
What the hell are you wearing? What is this shirt?
Did you give your kid back his shirt after you were done recording the video?
It's like my third grader made it. Like, I'm not that old, Dan. Come on, how old do you think I am? I don't even know what that is. I had no idea what that was from.
You built up such a great wig and costume collection over the past 2 years.
If these guys are gonna wear feather boas and pretend to be rappers, like the least we can do is throw them a bone. You dressing in drag might have put us over the top.
Or they're really big hee-haw fans.
Did you have like undergarments on to make sure that those...
That was definitely not what I was thinking.
I mean, aren't we a little bit worried about like what John might do on the weekends when we're not around?
I'm probably dating myself.
I was gonna make that joke. Dang you. Oh, it's the guy from the loser video.
And John
Yes.
nailed that.
That is what Loser's Lane is about.